Hello again, everyone. I am Chris Shera. This is the Citizen Sports Weekly for Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. And before we get started, I have to click off the notification that this meeting is being live streamed. So excuse me while I tap my screen. There we go. All righty, Robert Harding, Justin Ritzel with us. It's another fun Wednesday in Auburn, New York. We've got two NHL topics and an MLB topic, so let's get right to it. So we're down to the last two. Stanley Cup is going on. Lightning won the first game. Game two, I believe, is tonight. Can Montreal come back and end Canada's Stanley Cup drought, which dates back to 1993 when the Canadians themselves beat the Kings, the Wayne Gretzky LA Kings, to win the Cup? Or can the Tampa Bay Lightning repeat, which I believe has not been done in how long, Robert? 10 years at least?
Like 3 years. The Penguins just did it.
Oh, Penguins just did it. There you go. And I was just going to say, and if Robert wasn't sure, Justin, our resident hockey expert, would know. So there we go. Look, I'm no hockey expert. I've said this many a time, so I'm not going to try to profess to know whether the Lightning will repeat. I will say this, though. I know that Montreal was supposed to get knocked out in the first round by the Maple Leafs. They came back, and then they got on this roll. They came down from 3-1, knocked out the Leafs. They took out the Jets. They took out the Vegas Golden Knights. So they're playing with house money. But it seems like the Lightning are a different type of beast here. And, obviously, only one game, things can change. But it looks like the Lightning are rolling, and they're going to repeat. So go ahead, Justin. Your thoughts on the Cup final so far?
Well, game one was kind of a weird game. Lightning scored several goals that were kind of fluky. I wouldn't be too discouraged if I was a Canadiens fan. That's just kind of the way the puck bounces sometimes. But I do think the Lightning, they're just frankly a better team, especially if Nikita Kucherov is going to be healthy. He's one of the best players in the NHL. He didn't play the entire regular season. The Lightning held him out. Really, he was injured for sure. He had surgery done, but there was also some maybe salary cap gymnastics, a loophole perhaps that the Lightning took advantage of to basically keep them on the roster and keep all their other good players and still have their team at full strength once they got to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But listen, I think the thing in hockey, Chris, you made a comment last week, I think, where just goes to show like the Canadians making it, the regular season doesn't matter and blah, blah, blah. And this kind of thing happens all the time. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think of too many, if in a normal postseason, the Canadians would be like a 7th or 8th seed. I can't think of too many times when a seed that low has gone on to win the Stanley Cup. The times that I can think of off the top of my head where they've made it to the final, I think of the Edmonton Oilers in 2006, the first year after the lockout, and the Oilers kind of got to the final and they ran out of steam. I think of my Mighty Ducks of Anaheim back in 2003 behind Jean-Sébastien Giguère. Same thing. They were a 7th seed that year, made it all the way to the final, and Giguère kind of slipped up a little bit and they lost. It's just the recipe for these teams like the Canadiens is often you're just riding a hot goaltender for as long as possible. And that can be good for 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds, but eventually it catches up to you. Another underdog I think you can throw in is the expansion Vegas Golden Knights a few years ago, but same thing. Marc-Andre Fleury got basically hot for 3 rounds, and then he slipped up in the final, and they lost to Washington. So it's just very difficult for a team that isn't the most talented or the most skilled to just rely on a hot goaltender. The Canadiens haven't necessarily been all about Carey Price, but they're not as talented as the Lightning, and I think ultimately through a 7-game series, Tampa Bay is going to prove to be the better team. And it'll be interesting kind of in 10 years from now or 20 years from now, if the Lightning go back-to-back, kind of how the hockey world or the sports world views these championships because of COVID. They kind of won in a weird fashion last year playing in a bubble. A lot of people wanted to delegitimize not only them, but the Lakers, who were the NBA champs last year in the bubble. And then this year you're winning with a 56-game regular season. So I think it'll be a fun series. I think it'll still end up going 6 games at least, because that's just how the final tends to be. But I do like the Lightning to win it ultimately, go back to back.
Robert.
Yeah, the Canadians went on a great run here. You know, Carey Price stood on his head. Not sure if Chris knows what that means, but basically means he was good in goal there, Chris. I think we're all on the same page here. I think the Lightning are just the better overall team, and Kucherov has played exceptionally well in the playoffs. Obviously, well rested after that injury, and as Justin called it, the salary cap gymnastics. He, probably fair to say that if the Lightning do finish it off, that he'll be the Conn Smythe winner. But yeah, I mean, it's just a tough team that the Canadians are running up against. To Justin's point too, that it's not like the Lightning really. The score was a bit misleading, I think, with the goals that were scored in Game 1. I could see that this series will tighten up a bit. It is the Stanley Cup after all, and then just the style of play for the Canadians. I think that they can keep this close and maybe make it a little more interesting than people think. I think after Game 1, there's a lot of talk of like, oh, the Lightning are going to run away with this. They're going to sweep them. I bet the Canadians close the gap a little bit, but I think that the Lightning can comfortably close this out in 5 or 6 games. They're just too good all the way around. They have a pretty good goalie too, in Vasilevsky, and then just the roster, from top to bottom. They have a lot of talent, so it's going to be tough for Montreal to make up for that skills gap there. So. It is interesting, to Justin's point, with kind of the circumstances of these championships. I do acknowledge, the point that a lot of people are making in that, these are championships won under, unusual circumstances, because of COVID. But, in fairness to the Lightning, everyone had to play under these same rules. So, it's not like they had, some sort of built-in advantage because of it. Other teams could have taken advantage as well. There was talk that, maybe the Sabres are able to get into the playoffs because of the different format. And we know how that turned out. Boy, what a joke that team is. This is the reality everybody had to deal with. So, I don't want to take away too much from the Lightning. I will take plenty away from the faux champion Los Angeles Dodgers, who, in a shortened season took advantage of that. But hockey's a little different in my book. They do have that extended playoff, best of 7. There is an opportunity for upsets there if the teams are good enough to pull them off. So, I think that these championships are legitimate, albeit, in the scenario that the NHL presented. So tough to knock the Lightning on that one, but kudos to them for putting together great teams in back-to-back seasons, and I'm sure they'll go on to win this cup as well.
You want to do an in memoriam for your New York Islanders there, Chris?
Yeah, hey, they got to Game 7. They got to Game 7, and they, unfortunately, they couldn't put the puck in the net to tie it up or take the lead. But yeah, no, they were a great season for the Islanders. They hopefully have a bright future. So, all right, our next topic: Major League Baseball. Justin's Los Angeles Angels. I can't call it. It's the Anaheim Angels, please, because I remember when they were the California Angels. Anyways, Shohei Ohtani. I mean, talk about a Broadway debut. I mean, wow, 2 homers last night against the Yankees, even though the Angels lost. He's pitching tonight, I believe, and hitting. This is an amazing feat. I mean, this is something that I think that we're going to tell our grandkids about someday. What is going on right now? And the question is Ohtani the AL MVP, or is it too early to anoint him the MVP? I say no way. I don't think it's too early. I mean, we're halfway through the season now. I mean, these teams have all played about 80, 81 games, so we're halfway through. I don't think it's too early to say who you think that the MVP may be. And for Ohtani, I mean, the numbers he's put up. I mean, he leads the major leagues, I believe, with 28 home runs, and his pitching has been top notch too. But I think that for some people, the MVP, obviously meaning most valuable player, should apply to a team that is a contender and is in contention for a division title or maybe even a wild card spot. And the Angels are on the outer fringes of the wild card race. I mean, if they get hot and Mike Trout's going to be coming back, hopefully in the next month or so, maybe the Angels catch fire with Trout's return and make a go of it and get back into the wild card chase. But I think I've always been one of those people that I don't believe the MVP nowadays is necessarily for a player who contributes to a team making the postseason. I think it goes to the best player in the league. And I think there is no doubt about it that Shohei Ohtani is not only the best player in the American League, but arguably the best player in all of Major League Baseball. Kyle Schwarber of Roberts Nationals is putting on a power clinic that is ranked as one of the all-time greats, and it's insane what he's doing. But I think Ohtani is a unique person, unique player, one of a kind, and he deserves the MVP. So, Robert, your thoughts on Shohei?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at what he's doing at the plate, and that's what gets talked about a lot. But then also on the mound, and Justin can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that they're treating him a little bit differently as a pitcher. That it's not like he's going out there every fifth day. That they've had him on a little bit of a different schedule than your average starter. But he's still making starts as a pitcher, and he's still doing a hell of a job when he goes out on the mound. Some impressive displays, with power pitching and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, his performance at Yankee Stadium this week, really opened their eyes to this guy. This isn't a guy that a lot of people see, playing out on the West Coast. That it's not like he gets that prime time TV exposure. This was an issue with another Los Angeles Angel just a few seasons ago, and we know what Rob Manfred, that stooge, he's not good with the marketing side of it. That's very clear. He basically thinks that it's on the players apparently, and not the league. So, but yeah, I think if the voting's held today, it's a no-brainer that he's the AL MVP. And, I don't think it'd be particularly close. I mean, yeah, you could make a case that Vlad Guerrero Jr. belongs in that conversation. He's having a tremendous year. If you look at his stats, especially at, he's got the homers that, keep pace with Ohtani, but he's got a better average. I don't know where he's at with RBIs, but, they both have great OPSs. Chris doesn't know what that means, but their WARs are pretty good too, Chris.
On base plus slugging. There you go.
But I think what he's doing, what Ohtani's doing is great for baseball. And, I think it needs to be highlighted more. It helps him that, he gets these games at Yankee Stadium and, gets that, East Coast exposure. But, I think that MLB needs to be doing more to get this guy in front of eyes. I mean, this is a guy that can really, transcend the sport. And, you introduce him to some younger people, especially. And I think, the idea of this guy who can pitch well, hit well, is something that, we really haven't seen anybody like this since Babe Ruth. So at least Chris hasn't seen anybody like this since Babe Ruth. So, I think in this case, it's a huge deal. And yes, he's the MVP, but I think more than that, he's a guy that can bring some new people into the game, raise the profile of the sport again. make it a little bit more popular, because people are going to want to see this guy pitch and they're going to want to see him hit because he's so great at both. And we rarely get a treat like this.
Well, I'll tell you, last night it was funny because Justin and I were working obviously in different areas, and Justin is messaging me like, he homered again. He did it again. It's like, yeah, Justin was pretty stoked last night. So, all right, Justin, I think I know where you stand on this one.
Well, I think that not only is Ohtani the most valuable, the MVP in a traditional sense, most valuable player, he's the most valuable person in baseball right now, because not only is he performing on the field, but what he is doing, showing not only the amazing hitting ability at the plate, but to be able to pitch the way he does. He's not going to have the innings totals that a Jake DeGrom, for example, is going to have. The Angels are going to protect him a little bit more. Like Robert pointed out, he only pitches once a week. The Angels don't have a true 5-man rotation, but I think Ohtani is going to inspire so many young players, whether they start out at baseball, or they're going through the college level. And maybe even you'll see this teams more willing to do this at the professional level, but have players play both ways. If they have the ability, why would you want to limit a guy to one aspect of baseball? Not everyone's going to have the 5 tools that Ohtani does. I mean, he's obviously got incredible power, great hands, great quickness at the plate, but nasty stuff. Not everyone's going to have that, but I think he can, in many ways, save baseball, because we come on here almost every week and we have something to bitch about when it comes to Major League Baseball. And here's finally a person who is staying healthy, knock on wood, and is just a likable person by any stretch of the imagination. I find it hard to believe anyone would root against Ohtani. And he is developing interest. You want to throw barbs at Rob Manfred. I certainly don't credit him for any of this, but I'm on Twitter quite a bit, as you guys are, and I see a lot of people that do not traditionally tweet or care about MLB, that on a nightly basis are like, oh my God, Ohtani, like Chris, alluded to my messages last night on our chat. Oh my God, Ohtani did it again. Oh my God, this guy's unbelievable. What he is doing, not only just in the purest baseball sense, but the attention he is grabbing for Major League Baseball is really what makes him the most valuable player and person going right now. So I'm just, I said at the beginning of the year, when we kind of made our MLB predictions and all that, I said, Ohtani, if you're looking for a long shot MVP, take him, because if he stays healthy, that hitting ability plus pitching kind of makes him a shoo-in. Like, you can't be more valuable than that when you're dominating in both aspects of the game. So the thing is, you just got to stay healthy. If he can do that for really the first time in his career, then he's in for some exciting times ahead. I'm so glad that he's pitching tonight in Yankee Stadium, just considering the obviously New York City aspect of it, but New York has, as you guys know, I'm sure, like, such a huge Asian presence. It's got to be huge for a lot of people in that city to watch him have the success he's had the last 2 nights at the plate. And hopefully that continues tonight on the mound. I think baseball, if you could give Rob Manfred a couple beers in him at the bar, he'd say, yeah, I'm kind of hoping Ohtani has a big game tonight, because that'll be really good for baseball.
All right, our last topic, we're going back to the NHL. The Buffalo Sabres have a new head coach. It's Don Granato, who was their interim coach. Now, we've talked about the Sabres a bunch of times over the last few months, and you don't obviously have to be a hockey expert to know that this is probably the worst team in the entire all the NHL, and there's nowhere to go but up. So I can't say anything whether this guy's the right guy for the job. I have no clue. So I'll let Robert and Justin discuss whether they think he's the right guy for the job. So go ahead, Justin. Is Don Granato the right guy for the Sabres?
I don't know if there is a right guy for the Sabres. they've kind of tried everything. I mean, they've hired the promising assistant coach, Phil Housley. He was a really promising. had a lot of success as a defensive coach with the Predators, and then came to Buffalo, and it was like he didn't know what the hell he was doing. Ralph Kruger, like, that was totally out of left field. You know, a friend of mine likes to joke that the Sabres, you know, they hired a soccer coach. I guess it's not really a joke, because that's kind of what he was. Really unique hire that, once again, did not work out. So now they latched themselves to a coach who was an assistant, who relieved a fired coach, and didn't necessarily light the world on fire, but showed an ability to build relationships with the players. And I think by the end of the year, you could feel that the Sabres were kind of heading in a decent direction, despite the fact that Jack Eichel hadn't played the whole year. So I don't know if Don Granato is going to be the right guy. I would have liked to see the Sabres go after a guy like Bruce Boudreau or Mike Babcock, kind of established coaches who have been there, done that. They have a track record of building really bad franchises into annual playoff teams. I would have liked to see what someone like those two could have done with the Sabres, but unfortunately, that's kind of the issue with the Pagulas, I think. And I think this factored in ultimately why Granato was retained, is that they don't want to pay money to those kind of coaches because they can't afford it. So we'll see what happens. The Sabres, this is kind of the first step in what's going to be a big summer for them, because they're going to have the first overall pick, and they got to decide what they want to do with Eichel, who I think is absolutely a goner. I think they'd be stupid to hold on to him. I think that bridge is kind of burned. So we'll see. I'm at the point with the Sabres, and I'm not a fan of the team like Robert, but I'm at the point where I'm just going to assume everything they do is bad until they prove otherwise.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I think Renato is an okay hire. You know, the team seemed to respond better to his leadership. You know, Ralph Kruger was just a disaster. So, you know, the team seemed to improve a little bit. Obviously, they still stink. So, you know, it's not like they had a winning record with Renato. I believe, you know, I just looked up a little while ago. I think they had 9 wins in 28 games with him as the coach. So not great, not playoff material, to say the least. But, you know, we'll see what he can put together in a full season. And, you know, the Jack Eichel question is really the big question. You know, yeah, I don't see him coming back, you know, especially with this whole situation with an injury. I guess it was a herniated disc in his neck. And there was a bit of a squabble with that, a disagreement. So, you know, I think that's kind of like the last straw there. I think I think they could get, you know, a pretty good haul for him. And you know what? I think that would be better for the team. You know, the Sabres teams of the past, you know, yeah, they had some you know, good to great players that led the way, but they never had these like marquee stars, you know, these score like the Connor McDavids, you know, the Sidney Crosby types. You know, yeah, they had Dominic Hasek for a bunch of years, and you know, he really rose to superstardom. But you know, those teams in the mid 2000s didn't really have that. They had good players on that team. Don't get me wrong, but you know, these weren't guys that were considered, you know, among the NHL's elite. So I think they need to get back to that. I think they need to build better teams and quit thinking that, you know, one player here, one player there is going to be the answer for them. I do think that they need one player in net that will solve that problem, because goalie has been an issue for some time, inconsistent play there. And, you know, you need to really bolster your roster. And I think an Eichel trade can help them in that regard. You know, maybe bring in some NHL ready players, but also maybe acquire some draft picks to help you down the road. Because those teams of the past, a lot of those players that played on those teams were draft picks. And they weren't always first round draft picks, but, you know, they went up through the system, through Rochester, and shined for the Sabres. And, you know, for some reason, the Sabres decided to abandon that. tank and then try to start all over from scratch. And guess what? It didn't work out. So hopefully that was a lesson learned. And, with Eichel, they can fill some areas of need and improve as a team, because, one thing about Eichel, yeah, he was fun to watch at times, when he wasn't hurt, but, he wasn't the franchise changing player they thought he would be. They thought that, oh, well, with him, we're going to suddenly go in a different direction. And that just wasn't the case. And a lot of that's not his fault, of course, but this thought that one player can carry you to the promised land is just false. So, it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Sabres in that regard. They do have the number 1 pick. Let's see what they do in free agency. Let's see what they do with this Eichel situation. And who knows, maybe they'll be a better team. Maybe we'll give Don Granato some pieces to work with that, this team can actually make a run for once and show that they can, contend a little bit. I'm not saying that they're going to make the playoffs next year. I think that's a long way off. But if they can make progress toward that goal, then I think that's a good thing, a good sign of things to come, and certainly it'll help erase this disaster of the last decade.
All right, that's going to wrap it up, folks. I am going to be on vacation next week, so I don't know if we're going to have a video or not, or whether I'm going to be there or not, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Okay, thanks, Robert. By the way, I
am on vacation the following week for the record.
So I do have to give thanks to Robert. He gave me a wonderful birthday gift over the weekend. It was a Miami Miracle t-shirt, and washed it in the laundry today, and I will be wearing it hopefully in the near future. So Robert, thanks again for a wonderful, wonderful, thoughtful gift. So,
Well, you're welcome, Chris. My apologies that FedEx couldn't bring it on time. Note to FedEx, never using your cockamamie service ever again. Going to go with UPS or the good old U.S. Postal Service, who is trying to figure out a way to screw over its workers, but
wow.
They're at least a little reliable compared to the disaster that was FedEx.
Now, Miami Miracle, was that the last time the Dolphins made the playoffs, or what?
No, they didn't make the playoffs that year. Actually, they went into the tank. They won that game, and I believe they lost everything else, and that was the end of the Adam Gase era. So it was
it was a joke.
I know.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, guys. It's been fun as always, folks. Thanks for joining us, and hey, we'll see you sometime in the future. Who knows when? Thanks.